Hello everyone, welcome to episode 12 of Short Fever. Today we'll be going over the April 19th issue of Weekly Shonen Jump. And this week I ended up reading Under Doctor, Alien Headbutt, and 2B Class 2B Hero Destroyers, which was a new manga. But yeah, so first, Under Doctor, so this chapter we got to see as Maxell and Haji continue their fight. The name of this chapter was High Speed, and it's titled High Speed because now we get to see Maxell actually use his own power-up. Now, Maxell is actually a very muscular individual. However, he has now compressed his muscle down so that he can increase his speed, kind of like Super Saiyan God with the red hair. But yeah, so we see this, and he's kind of like a Biscuit Crew character by reducing his muscle mass down into a compressed state. But however, this actually to his advantage in this form. And so we see that now he doesn't even require the use of his hands because his muscles are so compressed and swift that he's actually just using his legs. We actually see him kicking at Haji and going like a handstand, like jabbing at him and all that while he just continued to eat an apple, which is funny because Haji is a doctor and apples, as everyone knows, is the direct antithesis to a doctor. But yeah, so we see this and they continue fighting, and we get a little bit of information into Haji's overload ability. I said overdrive for a second, but no, it's overload. But yeah, we get some information to his overload ability, and what it does is it energizes his body by pressing 18 of his pressure points, and this causes his heart rate and his pulse and his... I can't remember. I know it causes his pulse to increase and everything like that. It causes his bodily functions to increase at a rapid pace, and this can lead to mass deterioration after 10 minutes. He has a time limit of 10 minutes, because after 10 minutes, if he is still in overdrive, overload, he will have his heart will either burst or his brain will fry. And we see as Shiwa kind of gets mad at this because Haji is kind of pushing the limit in this fight. And she's like, doctors never pay attention to themselves. But we see as this fight continues, and ultimately we see as Haji is able to hit Maxell, because Maxell attempts to like slash the building with his legs. His legs, he states, are like as powerful as katanas. And he attempts to slash the building, but Haji ultimately dodges and hits him with a move called Earquake, which jabs his temporal regions. And his, I can't remember, semiocular and otoliths in his ear. I simply was semiocular eardrum and otoliths in his ears, which is essentially just the structures of the ear to mess up his equilibrium. So we see as Maxell kind of falls down, and then we see as Haji hits him with his ultimate move here, Overfinger. I did not like the title of that move, but it is what it is. But yeah, he hits him with Overfinger, and Maxell is now defeated, and we see as Chiba goes like, yo, you only have 8 seconds left, and Haji kind of falls out. He's not dead, but he's just presumably exhaustion. But yeah, well, we don't know if he's dead or not, but I'd presume it's just exhaustion. They're not going to kill Haji off 13 chapters in. But yeah, so Haji has now successfully defeated the most powerful assassin in all of America, which is pretty cool, because I don't know where he's got to go from here. But they'll find something. But yeah, so then we move on to Alien Headbutt. Alien Headbutt, this chapter was really good. So we actually get to see as Uga gets to interact with the people, not the people, but the aliens we saw last year, like the higher-up aliens, the Spike dude or the Needle dude, which we actually don't learn his name, and Volgana, who is the one who's on the motorbike with the pointy ears and all that. And Volgana is sick. I really like Volgano, and Birch kind of explains to them like why they're there. They're there, and they've put all the people in the pods to siphon off energy to create this child, this offspring that apparently will be some ultimate life force or something like that. Yeah, we see as they're all doing this over a cigarette, and we see as Volgano ends up handing Uga one. Uga gets smoking. He's never smoked before, and he gets to cough, and he's like, "Yo, bro, you take all the smoke into your lungs." But yeah, then we get to see as Volgano actually has like an admiration for a lot of stuff on Earth. He talks about how he likes the language, he likes katanas, he likes the bikes and all that, even though they may be less efficient. But he recognizes that the Earthlings are actually very efficient for weapon making, but not so much when it comes to transportation. But yeah, we see as they talk and all of that. And ultimately, they don't come to an agreement, and Uga is left to fight the Needle Man. And he ends up fighting him and all that. However, during this, he's beat away for a second, and then the Needle Man notices that Tatsumi has like this parasite on him. He's like, whoa, that's a gill bill. And apparently, there is some parasitic being that causes the aliens to lose their mind, lose consciousness, and stuff like that. However, it does not affect the humans in this way. And so they're enthralled by it. So ultimately, they end up capturing Yuki and Haruya, because they want, because they ultimately recognize that Uga also has this parasite, and they're like, yo, we want to test on you. And Uga's like, okay, I'll let you test on me if you let them go, but if you don't let them go, I'm going to stab myself in the eye right now and kill myself so that you can't test on me. But ultimately, he ends up acting like he's going to do it, but they're able to incapacitate him, what Volgano is, and they take him away. And the two, Yuki and Haruya, are actually released because Volgano is like, Volgano is like, yo, I promised him a thing, so I'm going to let him have it. But yeah, so we see that, And he's ultimately released, and then he wakes up, and he sees a woman there, a human woman, and he wakes up, and apparently he is in a place called the Mukurojima Soldier Factory, I believe that's what it's called. And we see the last panel of this dude with, like, his eyes all weird and stuff like that, something in his mouth. Yeah, it was weird. So I wonder where that's going to go next, honestly, because that's something I not really expecting. But yeah, so we'll get on to 2B, or Class 2B Hero Destroyers. Now, this was quite a long chapter. It was actually 67 pages, so I'm not going to be able to, like, get everything yet, because, like, a lot of it was kind of a goofy stuff. But the main premise is we are introduced to Valeris III, who is the daughter of the Demon King, who was overthrown by the hero in the demon realm. And so her, after being exiled, she wakes up in a toilet in a school bathroom, and her goal is to now reclaim her power so she can ultimately go and challenge the hero and acquire dark fiends in the human world who are powerful enough to help her overthrow the hero. But we see this, and ultimately we get to introduce to a new kid who is coming to the class. His name is Akira Kumon. And they just kind of interact and stuff like that, and she kind of explains what she's doing, why she's looking for powerful beings and everything, and how she lost all of her powers when coming to the human realm, so she needed to regain them and regain allegiance from other entities so that she can actually fight the hero effectively. But we actually get to learn a little bit of Akira Kumon. Now, we actually get introduced to this character by the name of, I believe his name was Demon King Commode. And he was known as Demon King Commode because he would beat up people. He was essentially a bathroom-centered thug who would beat up people in bathrooms and all of that. And we actually learn that Akira Kumon is actually Demon King Commode. And he was just trying to set his life anew, because we see it when they first interact with Valeris and Kumon, or Akira. Akira's like, yo, just let me study. And he came to this school in search to essentially live his life anew and support a life of studious, I guess, endeavors rather than his heathenist behavior prior. Yeah, so during this, we ultimately also get introduced to Valeris' little, like, imp helper. His name is Durgo. And they just kind of interact a little bit, and then ultimately we see as the big premise of this chapter ends up happening, where Kira Kumon is accosted by some thugs. And he ultimately ends up fighting back, and they end up in the bathroom. And he goes to the crapper, and he's doing his business. And they're like, yo, he's crapping in there. And he's like, no, I'm opening my ninth gate. And they're like, bro, you're just dumping in there. But ultimately we see that his ninth gate was, in fact, not a turd. It was a interdimensional portal to the demon realm. It was the same toilet because Valeris had concealed the toilet that she came out of when she came out of it, so that no one would, like, use it and accidentally go to the demon realm. However, Akira is able to see the things that are of the demon realm, because he's able to see, like, Valeris' actual attire and all that, rather than the illusion she set up. And so he's using this, and ultimately a bunch of, like, goblin stuff, like black, like, E-core liquid starts leaking out from under the thing, and they start freaking out. They're like, yo, he's done, like, flooded the toilet, he's done clogged this John. And we see as, like, goblins start coming out of this, and they start attacking everyone, and ultimately they also attack Valeris. And Valeris was attacked because the hero has been able to recruit some of the demon realm citizens to actually hunt down Valeris. But ultimately the demons are being, we see as Demon King Commode, aka Akira Kumon, is able to help fight off as well with his actually demonic powers. And, well, I mean, that's nothing, like, really crazy, but he just, like, has a beast within him, and that only ever activates when he's on the commode. Yeah, so we see this, and ultimately they're all beat, and that's really the end of the chapter. So, yeah, that was kind of a goofy chapter. I will most certainly continue to read of it and partake in it, because, like, I don't really know where it's going to go. But, yeah, that's all there really was for the April 19th issue of Weekly Shonen Jump, and all I really have for episode 12 of Shonen Shorts, which wasn't really short today, but thank you very much for watching.